Venezuela just a couple of months ago. Tens of thousands took to the streets, angry over food shortages, a mismanaged economy and a spiralling crime rate. They thought their protest would bring the government down. Altamira Plaza, Caracas echoed scenes from Libya, Egypt, the Ukraine, but with a very different outcome. This is the plaza today. Caracas is calm. The president, Nicolás Maduro, is still in charge, and the protest movement has failed to sustain its momentum. Why? I've come to one of Caracas's poorest barrios, Antímano, to find out. Half the city's population live in these neighbourhoods, which cling to the hills around the capital. The government has built houses for many in Antímano, including Pedro López. It's also given him a pension and provided for his grandson, Jorge.
Ahorita con el gobierno nadie podía estudiar así, que te iban a dar los libros, computadores, ahorita que se ve eso aquí en Venezuela.
President Maduro might not have the charisma of his predecessor Hugo Chavez, but he's carried on his mentor's legacy, continuing to spend state oil revenue on housing, medical and educational aid for the poor. That's meant that even amidst rampant inflation and shortages of basic necessities, many in the barrios remain loyal to him and hostile to the opposition's calls for change.
Se pierde la misión, aquí se pierde todo. Sinceramente, esa gente no van a venir con... Eso van a venir más zumbándole todavía, más a uno todavía.
Las personas si de barrio, eso, olvídate, eso no los ayudan más.
¡Se puede o no se puede!
A largely middle to upper class opposition has failed to change that impression, according to Venezuela expert David Smalde.
The protests, they very much happened in the 15 or 20 most affluent municipalities of Venezuela. There was no effort on the part of the leadership to sort of bridge out, talk about issues of equality, talk about issues of poverty.
I put that to right-wing politician Maria Corina Machado, who's risen to international fame as a protest leader.
The poor barrios of Caracas, they didn't erupt and join your cause. Doesn't that indicate that there was a lack of support as well for what you can offer the country?
I believe there are many reasons to explain that. One is certainly fear, and the way that social and political control has been growing deep down in many sectors of the population.
That's not the only reason.
No, that's not the only reason. I believe there are other reasons related also with propaganda.
Was it the right moment to take protests to the street?
No, I don't think it was the right time. I think it was late. We should have done it before.
Many in the divided opposition disagree, saying they should have gathered more popular support before taking to the streets. Without it, the rallies have lost momentum. The protests continue, but while a couple of months ago, marches and demonstrations like this one were seen almost every day in Caracas, with time they've decreased in their frequency and the number of people that are attending. The dwindling participation is also due to a harsh government crackdown.
La estrategia del régimen para frenar estas protestas ha sido mayormente eso, asustar a los muchachos, asustar a los jóvenes, encarcelarlos.
Eduardo González had been camped out in front of the UN officers with about 300 other students for weeks until security forces arrived on May the 8th.
Lo que estaba pasando aquí es que estábamos protestando, una protesta pacífica que teníamos con unas carpas y estas figuras representan a los muchachos que tumbaron al suelo los guardias ese día.
Over 3,000 demonstrators have been detained. 160 remain in prison awaiting trial, including leader Leopoldo López. Maria Corina Machado herself has been accused of a plot to kill President Maduro. But the problems that provoked the protests remain, and even in government strongholds like Antímano, people are tired of waiting hours to buy food.
De verdad no sé si esto cambiará, si podemos seguir teniendo fe en el gobierno, porque de verdad que no le vemos mejoría.
The protests are not over. All the conditions that led to protests are still there. We have something that is a little bit closer to a Thailand situation, in which we can have months and years in which there's protests that die down, that come back.
An ominous prospect for President Maduro. John Holman, CCTV, Caracas.